So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Karaoke back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Tuesday, November 24th. Everybody's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day. Yes, their day. It is, in fact, Tuesday, November 24th. Everybody's having a good day so far. Last night's football game was a good game last night. A good game. Came down to the wire. Literally came down to one of the final plays of the game where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady threw a game-losing interception, which ended up losing them the game. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fail once again, and they move to 7-4 on the year. And the Rams win and move to 7-3 on the year, as the Rams really played very well yesterday. They played a complete football game. Every quarter they were playing good. They played a very complete football game. 7 points, 10 points, 7 points, 3 points. A complete football game throughout the entire game. They were playing good. They played a very good football game, and they came out with the win yesterday in a big fashion, big fashion. So they obviously got a big win yesterday in regards to that, and they won 27-24. And the Buccaneers, I said this earlier, I don't know really what's going to happen with them. I mean, they're 7-4 right now. They're in a tough position. And you wonder what's going to happen with this team. You wonder. They're 7-4 for a team that everyone was like, oh, Super Bowl. That's every week. It seems like that's slipping away. So we'll cover that in just a little bit. These are the topics today. We got Monday Night Football games slash and fantasy football. I'll cover all the game. Talk a little bit about the fantasy football. Give you my insight on it. I picked up 3 players so far. I got Giants defense on a waiver claim, Raheem Mostert on a claim, and I picked up Eckler on a claim. So hopefully those moves go through. They should have no problem going through as long as no one else takes them. Which I'm feeling pretty confident about all my moves because it's not like I'm getting any star player. I mean, Mostert I am probably a little concerned with because he's off of IR now, and he was in the waivers in my one league. So I am assuming once he sees off waivers, people are going to jump on him. But I'm hopefully in front of that person in waiver claims, so then, whoever picks him up. So hopefully I end up with him, and hopefully I get him and snag him, and that would be a pretty good situation. We got Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I talked slightly about it yesterday, about what all happened with Joe Burrow. I'm going to talk more about it today. I kind of want to go through everything that happened, all the knee stuff, because I quickly ran through it yesterday because I was going through the games. I kind of run through completely what happened to him and how bad it really is. I'm going to run through that today and talk about what the Bengals are looking like now, because the Bengals are in a very tough situation without Joe Burrow and not in a good situation without him. So it's going to be interesting to see. Then we got the college basketball games. College basketball starts tomorrow, starting what is a very odd season for college basketball, like all the other sports. An odd season. Some places will have fans, some places won't. Coaches and players, maybe, coaches with masks on, refs, I'm sure, with masks on. So it's going to be another odd season for college basketball. Hopefully it's a very successful season and they get through the March Madness without any problems. There's going to be cases that might pop up here and there. It's almost impossible not to have that happen, unless if you're in a bubble. But even bubble, the MLB, they had a positive case, although I'm wondering if that's a false positive because that did not spread without the team. So obviously, we'll talk about college basketball. I'm not going to predict the games yet. I'm going to just talk about them, give you all the games that are going to happen because there is no college football on until Thursday, which is kind of difficult because the NFL is on Thursday. So I'm not going to, watch I'm going to be watching the NFL, so that stuff. And also, quick update. Tomorrow, I'm still deciding on what I'm doing. I'm leaning towards taking Thanksgiving Day off. Just because I do a lot on Thanksgiving, and it's one of those bigger holidays. It's not like, one of the small holidays. Like, I've done podcasts during, smaller holidays. Like, I did a podcast, and Halloween was on a Saturday. But, for example, if Halloween was on a Friday, I would do a podcast on Halloween. It's not one of those huge holidays. Thanksgiving's one of them. Same thing with Christmas. Although I probably will do a podcast on Christmas Eve. It all depends on what day it falls on. If Christmas falls on a Sunday or a Saturday, then I'm not going to do a pod anyway because I don't do a pod on the weekend. But just a quick update. I'll keep you more updated on tomorrow. Tomorrow's podcast is going to be talking about the college basketball games and Kentucky. And I'm deciding on whether I'm doing my game picks tomorrow or if I'm just going to do a special quick maybe 15, 20-minute pod on Thursday doing my game picks. It's going to be one of the if there's going to be a podcast on Thursday, I'm just going to sit here and tell you this really quickly. If there's going to be a podcast on Thursday, it's going to be a quick 15, 20-minute podcast, maybe even less, where I literally tell you who I think is going to win and why for the 3 games. For the Texans-Lions game, for the Redskins-Cowboys game, and for I'm not going to go crazy in depth into each of them. I'm not going to give you the keys to the game. I'm going to give you it might be a 10-minute pod. It might be a very quick podcast because I'm not going to take an hour. Pods take about an hour. They take about 50 minutes to an hour. It's really whatever. Some days it takes an hour. Some days it takes 50 minutes. Some days it takes 50. I always just round it up. I'm not going to sit here and do an hour pod on a big holiday, one that I celebrate and very enjoy. So I'm still deciding. And if I don't do a pod on Thursday, I'll be right back on Friday. I'll do a pod. I'm definitely doing a pod tomorrow. Thursday's still up in the air. It's depending. And if I do a pod on Thursday, it's going to be a quick 10, 15 minute, maybe 20's a lot, but maybe 20-minute podcast where I'm just going to give you who I think is going to win and why. I'm not going to give you the keys to the game. I'm not going to go into crazy in-depth. I'm not going to give you fantasy. I'll give you fantasy. If anything, I'll give you a quick fantasy. But tomorrow, I'm more leaning towards taking off Thanksgiving and because I also think it would be better because I think I'll give you more in-depth look at the games if I just do them tomorrow. So tomorrow the plan is college basketball, Kentucky game, and then whatever I decide to do. I'm still kind of deciding, and I'm more than likely, like I said, leaning towards just doing it on Wednesday, taking off Thursday, coming back Friday, doing a pod on Friday, talking about the Thursday Thanksgiving games, and then doing a podcast talking about the upcoming weekend games. Still deciding it, though, but more than likely I'm leaning towards that way. I'll obviously tell you tomorrow because you'll know tomorrow depending on what my topics are. I kind of just wanted to get that out of the way. But with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Chargers last night, and the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams won last night 27-24. They moved to 7-3 on the year, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fall to 6-3 on the season. It stinks because I was literally going to take the Rams, and it was funny because on Friday, I remember when I was talking to you guys, I said I already know who I'm going to take on Monday. I said I think it's going to be a pretty easy pick. I had the Rams in my mind, and then Monday comes around the corner. I'm about to, say, the Rams are going to win, and I realize, hold on a second. I look at the spread, I look at the numbers and stuff, and I just double-thinked myself, and I said, no, Buccaneers are going to win this game. Buccaneers, I was looking at their defense, I was looking at the offense, I was like, no, Buccaneers are going to win this game. And I was like, and now when I was sitting there watching that game, sitting there watching Brady, now I was not really rooting for the Buccaneers to win because I don't like Brady, but I was in one of those odd situations. I didn't want them to lose, but I also was kind of in the same boat, like I want him to win because I don't like Brady. I really don't like to see him win games and win championships. I know that might sound mean, but I just don't. He's destroyed the Jets throughout his career just because he's in Tampa in a completely other conference than us. I still don't like him. But it's still with me now that I still feel like, I should have picked the Rams, but I picked the Buccaneers. I double-thinked myself, and they always say that even too. If you're taking some sort of quiz or something, 80% of the time you're correct with your first answer. If you change your answer, you're 20, then you're going to be about 20% correct. You got to stay with your first gut instinct. I did not do that, and I was wrong. So hopefully I get bounced back because I went 6-8 this week, by far my worst week of the season. Hopefully I can bounce back. It's kind of funny because with all these Thanksgiving Day games, you'll have a good idea of how you're going to do on these Thanksgiving Day games because you're going to have 3 games to pick from. You're going to have 3 games. So you're either going to start off 2-1, 1-2, 0-3, or 3-0. You're going to figure out if you go 0-3 on the 3 Thanksgiving Day games, you're in a position where you're like, this might be a bad week for picks. I went 6-8 in week 11. I'm hoping for a turnaround in week 12. I think at least I'm going 2-1 on the Thanksgiving Day games. I feel very confident about 2 games. The game I am still in a toss-up is that Steelers-Ravens game. That's the game is a toss-up to me. Not the Steelers-Ravens, I'm sorry. The Washington Cowboys game. Redskins-Cowboys game, or whatever, Washington football team, whatever. That Cowboys-Washington game is the toss-up. I mean, that game could go either way. You got two teams battling it out, but you got two teams that are about the same skill. You don't know who to pick. Texans-Lions, I'm not going to tell you I'm going to pick. In my opinion, that's an easy one. Steelers-Ravens, another easy one. That Cowboys-Washington game is the one game that I'm still deciding. I decided who I was going to pick a couple days ago on the Thursday games. I'm still deciding who do I take. Cowboys-Washington. Because I'm kind of leaning, because I have two guys in fantasy. I have Elliott going and Gibson going. Gibson bearing any injuries. So I don't know quite who to pick there. I mean, it's not one of those situations where I'm rooting for the one team because I guess I just pick whatever team and root for both of them on offense because I need Gibson and Elliott to give me points. But that's going to be a good game. So anyway, so this was the game last night. Obviously, the Rams won 27-24. Moved to 7-3 on the year. I said this at the beginning of the year. Right, and you could go back, and I'm not exactly what exact day I said it on. I know I said it before the year. I might have said it when the Buccaneers picked up either it was McCoy or Gronkowski. It might have been so back in August, July, before the season. It was a couple weeks before the season. I mean, so it could be late July, early August. I know it was not during the season because I already made my prediction before the year. But I said this, and this is going back to this summer. I said, and like I said, you can if you really want to, you could go back and find it. It might take you a very long time to find the exact moment I said it. You got to nail down the day, and you got to nail down the exact time in the video. That's going to be difficult. But I do remember, and I think you can comment down below and agree with me if you watch that podcast. And I know many of you watch all my podcasts. So I'm going to tell you this. I said this someday in the summer, whatever. I said this before the season started. Now, I'm going to just kind of make a public service announcement. Are the Buccaneers that bad this year? No. They're 7-4. They're 3 games above 500. I mean, they're 7-4. I mean, there's not much else has to be said. They are 7-4. So, they're not like they're 4-7, and that's what the announcer said last night. They're 7-4, but the 7-4 is not very good for how much hype this Buccaneers team got. 7-4 is not a bad record. But for the Buccaneers, it's a pretty bad record considering all the hype they got. And the announcer said it's not like, oh, they're 4-7 or 3-8 or even 5-6 or whatever. It's not like they're that. They're 7-4. So they're still 3 games above 500 and still very well into the playoff conversation. I think the NFC South at this point is out of their reach. They lost twice against the Saints, and the Saints are rolling right now. I think the NFC South's out of their reach. I don't personally think they win the NFC South. They would need the Saints to lose a ton of games, and they would need to pick it up and win a ton of games. And either way, they have the disadvantage because the Saints already beat them twice. So they would really have to pick up many games. They're down right now, 2, I think, in the loss column, 1 in the win. So they're right now far back from the Saints. Saints have sole possession of that first place. So, I think the NFC South is out of reach for them. I mean, but you got to look at it with this Buccaneers team. I mean, I know they're 7-4, but they got to, and I don't think they're going to choke and miss the playoffs. I don't think they're going to do that. But they have a couple tough opponents coming up. Let's read their upcoming schedule. They have the Rams yesterday. That was a tough opponent. Actually, maybe they don't have the hardest opponents ever. Maybe they don't. But still, they have the Chiefs. That's a tough game. You might fall to 7-5 right there. That's a tough game. Then you have a bye week. They have a very odd bye week. They have, I think, the final week of the season for where you can have a bye week. They have a bye week, week 13. Come back, play the Vikings. I wouldn't call that a guaranteed win. Might give them a win, but I wouldn't say that's a guaranteed win. And then you finish off the season Falcons, Lions, Falcons. So they're going to finish with at least 10 wins because Falcons, Lions, Falcons. I mean, I don't think you can lose to the Falcons. Maybe you lose to the Falcons on the final week of the season because you're benching your starters if you already clinched a playoff spot and there's nothing to play for. Or maybe you just completely roll over the Falcons because they have nothing to play for and they're playing some of their backups. It's one or the other. But then you have the Falcons, Lions, Falcons. So they have 2 more, iffy opponents. They have the Chiefs. That's going to be tough. I personally wouldn't give them the win. And then you have the Vikings. That's a toss-up. I would maybe give the edge to the Buccaneers just because the Vikings are one of those teams. They come out, look stellar one week, and then they come out and lose to the Cowboys the next week. And the Vikings are, you can say the same thing with the Buccaneers. I mean, Brady comes out, throws 5 touchdowns, next week throwing 3 touchdowns and, went 15 of 40 passing, right? So, that's an exaggeration, but still. this is a team. But I said this at the beginning of the year. I said this entire Buccaneers, Brady, this whole experiment. This was an experiment, people. This is an experiment. I said this whole Brady, Buccaneers, Tampa Brady, Tampa Bay, or Tampa Brady, or Tampa Bay, whatever it's called. This was an experiment, and it is. I said this at the beginning of the year that this was not going to work. That's what I said at the beginning of the year. That this whole Tampa Brady, Tampa Bay, Tom Brady, Buccaneers, Mike Evans, Gronk coming back is not going to work. And I don't want to say it's completely been a bust and has barely even worked at all. I don't want to sit here and tell you that because I don't know if that's fair. I don't want to sit here and tell you that's a bust, hasn't worked at all. But it has not lived up to expectations, nowhere close to the expectations Buccaneers fans put and many other NFL fans put. And that was, we were here last year. We're all the way up here this year. We're Super Bowl contenders. They're right now about in the middle. I would say the Buccaneers are average to a little bit above average team. And this is coming from a person who does not like Brady, but I try to be as fair as possible. I don't think Brady has played that good this year. I mean, geez, did you see what he did last night? He did not play good at all last night. Throws of 15-plus yards last night. He was 1 for 9 with 2 interceptions. They got him so he could throw the deep ball to his deep ball receivers. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. They added Antonio Brown. He has not done that. And I said this at the beginning of the year. You're getting a big name in Tom Brady who is out of his prime, coming off of one of the worst statistical seasons in his career since that whole Tom Brady, Belichick, Patriots dynasty started. And you can't count the year where he came in for Bledsoe and stuff because he was a backup most of that year. His first year starting, where that whole that whole Tom Brady, Belichick, Patriots, we all know it. It stinks. I know it stinks, but the Patriots dynasty. I don't like saying that, but they were unbelievable. This season, he has been, I feel like, even worse than last year at times. Yesterday, he threw the ball 48 times. He completed it only 26 times. He had a rating, not a QBR. This is just a rating, an overall player rating of 62.5. You want to hear Jared Goff's? And Jared Goff didn't play insane either. He had a 99.8. 62.5 rating? I mean, that is just horrible. And that's the guy that's going to lead you to a Super Bowl victory. Now, I'm sitting here today, Tuesday, November 24th. We could be sitting here the day after the Super Bowl talking about Brady winning Super Bowl MVP. It is still, I don't think it's going to happen. But, I mean, it's not outrageous. They're not eliminated from the playoffs, so they obviously still have a shot. Every team that hasn't been eliminated from the playoffs obviously has a shot at the playoffs. Some mathematical coordination or whatever. Other teams have less than others. Obviously, Jaguars you need a crazy mathematical equation to solve that in order for them to get in there. And too many numbers, I would not be able to even solve it in order for them to get into the playoffs. But they have not been eliminated. The Buccaneers haven't been eliminated yet. And you're going to sit here and tell me that what you saw last night wasn't a horrible game. I mean, for overall. For Brady, it was awful. For this offense, it was pretty choppy. But you're going to sit here and tell me what you saw out of Tom Brady last night, and you've seen it on prime time. That's another thing. They put him on prime time, 7 times, I think, this year? They're 2-5 on prime time. I mean, how bad can it get? Oh, Buccaneers, Brady, prime time. Barely beat the Giants on prime time. Got absolutely embarrassed by the Saints on prime time. Brady throws another embarrassing throw last night on prime time. Everyone's, oh yeah, prime time Buccaneers. Guess what? Primetime Buccaneers are horrendous this year. And they have fallen to 7-4 in the year. And I would not call it a guarantee that this team is going to easily walk into the playoffs. Their schedule definitely favors them. I think next week they're going to probably lose against the Chiefs. I don't want to spoil my pick, but I think we can all agree they're probably going to lose. The Vikings, I would give them the advantage, but that's week 14 too. I'm not going to decide who I'm going to pick right now. Injuries, players out, whatever. Then I'll decide them. But I mean, if this is a team who loses next week to the Chiefs, goes into the bye week 7-5, then comes out of the bye week, I'm saying they're 7-6. They're lucky. They are very, very. The only reason I think the Buccaneers get into the playoffs is because of those final 3 games. The Falcons, Lions, Falcons. I mean, you're playing just horrendous teams. You're playing horrendous. I mean, the Falcons are pretty struggling, but you're playing horrendous teams. This is a team for a lot of people thought we're going 14-2, 13-3. It might only go 9-7, 10-6. So this is a Buccaneers team that has been a disappointment to say the very least this year. And it's not like they're sitting here with 3-8 or 2-9. They're sitting here 7-4. But for all the hype they got up, for all these primetime games that they're supposed to be winning, that they have not won, this Buccaneers team has been in a huge upset this year. And I said this again, this team is full of names. Skill is iffy. It's full of names. LaShawn McCoy, big name. What has he done? Leonard Fournette, big name, has had a struggle this year. Not great. Ronald Jones, not a huge name. He's played well. Mike Evans, big name. He's played very well. Chris Godwin, small name. He's been average. Gronk, big name. Antonio Brown, big name. Tom Brady, big name. What have those guys done? What has Tom Brady done? What has Antonio Brown done? Now you could say, oh, Antonio Brown's been playing great. Oh, yeah. Not good enough. Same thing with Gronk. Gronk's had a decent year, I will admit. I've been very pleasantly surprised with Gronk. I picked him up in fantasy. I'm not starting him right now, though. I've been very pleasantly surprised with how the way Gronk's played. But I still wouldn't sit here today and call him, what everyone expected. Oh, Gronk, Brady, Patriots is back. It's not Gronk and Brady Patriot formation. This is not the Gronk and Brady Patriots. This is different Gronk and Brady. This is not the Patriots Gronk and Brady. This is the Buccaneers Gronk and Brady, and it's 2 guys that are older, one coming right out of retirement, one probably heading close to retirement. It's a lot different. This team got a lot of big names, and these big names have been not performing to what their big name should perform to. And I said it at the beginning of the year. I said this team was not going to work, and it really hasn't worked that well. And they are still 7-4, but I mean, I'm sure a lot of people thought going to their bye week they might be 12-2, 12-1, 10-2. Because of the names of this team. You hear Tom Brady. Oh my gosh, Tom Brady. If you look at the numbers, look at his age, he's not going to perform that good. And he showed last night a guy who has been very good for throwing the deep ball has looked horrendous at that this year. And the Buccaneers fall again. And you look at the Rams played good last night, and Jared Goff made mistakes, but Brady made more mistakes. It came down to mistakes that game. Goff made that late game mistake, Brady makes a late game mistake. You cannot throw that ball across the middle that badly. That had to be one of the worst throws I have seen Tom Brady make. And I said this a couple weeks ago. I think I said it after the Giants game. A couple weeks ago. Brady has made some really bad throws, and he made some even more bad ones last night. Everyone might pay attention to the interceptions. You also got to look at the amount of incompletions. I mean, this is a guy yesterday that went 26 of 48. He was below 50%. He was below 50% throwing the ball. Or no, yes, no, wait. 20, 48. Okay, maybe he actually was. 26, 48. Yeah, but anyway. I mean, this is a guy yesterday whose completion percentage was not very good. Threw the ball a whole lot and did not complete a whole lot. And, they're still saying that this guy, he's had 25 touchdowns this year. I know, and he's had 9 interceptions. But, I mean, really? I just don't know. I really don't. His completion percentage yesterday was 54.2. Can't get much. That's not good. That's not very good. Or maybe it was 54.2. I don't know. But that's not very good. So this Buccaneers team's got to fix it, and they got to fix stuff fast. Because they're going to have the Chiefs coming in, who by far are, or are they at the Chiefs? They got the Chiefs coming up. They're home against the Chiefs. I feel like every time I watch the Buccaneers, they're home. And they've been home the past 3 straight games. They're going to be home for... Oh, never mind. They weren't home. They weren't home against the Panthers. I feel like every primetime game this year, they were home. Weren't they? Saints, they were on the road. I will give it to that. Give it to them. and whatever their other primetime games were. Packers, they were home. That was not a primetime, but Giants, they were on the road. Okay. Saints, they were home. Rams, they were home. Chiefs are, I feel like these teams sometimes, I don't know. Is it just me, or do I feel like sometimes teams have a lot more home games than they do road games? I guess it balances out at the end. They did have a away, home, away, home, away, home, and then away, away, and now they're home, away, home, home, home. So I guess it makes sense why they're 3 games home, but still. And the Rams last night, like I said, they made mistakes, a couple mistakes. Goff had that bad interception late in the game. But at the end of the day, the Buccaneers made more mistakes, and that's really what it came down to. And I thought overall the Rams limited their mistakes, and the Buccaneers, for the most part, did on defense and mainly offense outside of Brady. Brady made too many mistakes. I don't like to sometimes use the team as mistakes because the Rams played a pretty clean game yesterday. Penalties, mistakes, they played pretty clean. Goff had a couple mistakes. Those 2 interceptions are obviously going to be mistakes, but he had a couple mistakes, even just a couple bad throws and a couple bad reads. He did complete 39 of his passes on 51. He was 1 away from a Monday Night Football record, so I can't really sit here and tell you how bad Goff did because he was very successful yesterday. He only had 12 incompletions yesterday compared to Brady had 22 incompletions yesterday, which was very bad. Brady had 22 incompletions yesterday, but still, obviously, he only had 12, so Goff played a pretty clean football game. Like I said, I think overall that this is a Rams team that played good throughout. And they didn't play great. They played very good. And they did make some very good plays, but all throughout the game, they scored in every quarter. They looked good in every quarter. And overall, they came out with the win. And their defense made some big plays late in that game that really, really, really forced them. And I'll tell you, I'll give props to the Buccaneers. They stopped them. He got sacked and Brady did get pressured a little bit, but for the most part, Donald was not a huge factor in yesterday's game. He was not a huge factor. And I'll tell you what, they were really able to. Ibukum got the sack for the Rams. It wasn't even Donald. They did get pressures on him. He had that one play where it looked like a fumble was incompletion, but it was a good game for the Rams. Some of the stats: Jared Goff went 39 of 51, 376 yards, 9.6 was his average, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a rating of 99.8. Brown had 3 carries for 20 yards, 6.7 was his average. Cam Akers 5 carries, 15 yards, 3 was his average. Some of the receiving: Cooper Kupp had a big game. He had 13 targets, 11 catches, 145 yards. 13.2 was his average. Robert Woods had 15 targets, 12 catches for 130 yards and 1 touchdown. Van Jefferson had his first career touchdown yesterday, and Cam Akers also caught a touchdown. Those were the 3 that Goff threw. No rushing touchdowns yesterday. All the touchdowns were thrown by Jared Goff. You had the one to Woods, the one to Jefferson, and the one to Cam Akers. Woods and Kupp led the way with receiving. Woods and Kupp had a big day combined. Both of 100. Obviously they had 275 yards combined. They had 275 yards of combine them to 275 yards of Jared Goff's 376, so the rest of the team only had 101 yards of his rest. So they had more yards. The rest of the team had 101. That was combined to Reynolds, Everett, Higbee, Brown, Jefferson, Henderson, Akers all combined for 101. And together, Kupp had 145, Woods had 130. That hit 175. So a very good game for the Rams receiving core and Jared Goff. And as for the Buccaneers, I talked about it with Brady. Brady went 26 of 48, 216 yards, 8.3 his average, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a sack, and his rating was 62.5. Ronald Jones had 10 carries for 24 yards, 2.4 was his average. Leonard Fournette had 7 carries for 17 yards, 2.4 was his average. He had a touchdown. Not a big rushing day for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Antonio Brown had 13 targets, 8 catches for 57 yards. Chris Godwin 10 targets for 7 catches for 53 yards. Evans 9 targets, 5 catches, 49 yards, and a touchdown. So the 3 touchdowns were Leonard Fournette rushing touchdown. Godwin and Evans both had touchdowns. Brady threw 2 of the 3 touchdowns they scored. Just did not. At the end of the game, too many mistakes For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Gronk only had 25 yards yesterday. He got targeted 6 times, just only could catch 2 of them. Rams win, Buccaneers lose. Rams move to 7-3 on the year. Buccaneers move to 7-4. Rams right now are still very well in that at 7-3. And you look at the Rams' upcoming schedule. I mean, they're still very well in it. They've got a very winnable game against the Niners. They've got a winnable game against the Cardinals. I'm not saying the Cardinals are bad. That's a game that they could win. Realistically, the Rams could win all of their remaining games. They can. I mean, anyone, but they have a very good shot. Like, you could say, oh, anyone could beat anyone, but it's football, I know. But realistically, if you're really talking realistically, they can win every one of their rest of their games. And you could watch this. 49ers, they can beat them. Cardinals, they can beat them. Patriots, they can beat them. Jets, they can easily beat. That's a guarantee. Seahawks, they've already beaten them this season. They could very well beat them again. And the Cardinals. Again, so I think the automatics are the Niners. I think they beat the Patriots pretty easily, and the Jets. So they automatically have 10 wins, I think. I think the Niners are easy. I think the Patriots will be easy, and I think the Jets. The other games, the Cardinals, Seahawks, Cardinals will be tough, but I think at least they can win one of those. I think they can at least beat the Cardinals or the Seahawks. They've already shown the Seahawks. I think you would have to take the Seahawks because they haven't played the Cardinals yet, so you got to see what happens. They already beat the Seahawks, so you can automatically say they could beat them. But without a doubt, though, they could very well finish out this year they could very well finish out 13-3 is what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying all these games are manageable for them. They're not playing one crazy team. Cardinals and Seahawks are very good, but they can match up with them. I think they're very easy wins are the Niners, the Jets, and the Patriots. I think those are your automatics. And you could sit here and tell me that, they're making the cross-country trip to the Jets, MetLife Stadium, time difference, all that stuff. You could tell me that, but you also got to realize you're playing the New York Jets. And no matter where you got to travel from, you're going to beat them. So I think they definitely have a good shot. I mean, their schedule, I think you could say, would be tough. But, I mean, this is also a very good team. So I think they're in a good situation right now for the Rams. So that's kind of what we got. Rams with 7-3 on the season. Let's take a look at next week's game. It's the Jets, Dolphins, Texans, Lions, Washington, Cowboys, Ravens, Steelers. And then for the regular Sunday games, Jets are also on Sunday. I just read those first. For the regular Sunday games, it's the Browns, Jaguars, Cardinals, Patriots, Bills, Chargers, Giants, Bengals, Panthers, Vikings, Raiders, Falcons, Titans, Colts. 49ers, Rams, Saints, Broncos, Chiefs, Buccaneers, Bears, Packers, and the Monday night games, the Seahawks, Eagles. It's decent. Monday night game's decent. Thing with the Sunday night game, that's not the best game ever. Packers, Bears, I guess the rivalry, but still not the best game ever. And neither is the Monday night game. Neither primetime game on Sunday or Monday is great. Seahawks, Eagles, I think that's pretty easy. I think that's pretty obvious. And same thing with the Bears, Packers. I think that's kind of obvious as well. But I'll review those picks then. So that's your week of football. And obviously the Jets play the Dolphins. So that's your upcoming week of football. Another good week of football officially in the books. As we now look ahead to week 12. 3 Thursday games. And then the rest of the NFL on Sunday. And then the Seahawks and the Eagles on Monday. So now we move on to our fantasy football, our topic that we do pretty much every day except Wednesday. Fantasy football, or tomorrow might be Wednesday though, because if I do if I do decide to do the football on tomorrow's podcast, then that will be the case. Fantasy football, it doesn't become official on Tuesday, but I officially won in both leagues yesterday. Only the second time, according to what I was reading, only the second time this year that has happened. Week 8 and now again in week 11. So always a great feeling whenever you win in both leagues. It is. I haven't had that feeling much. I mean, 2 weeks, the rest of the 9, I've either lost in both or won in both, whatever the case may be. And it's nice because even though the Jets lose, it's nice to know they're winning fantasy. If I've had a couple weeks this year, I mean, any week that I lose both weeks, the Jets have lost. So I've had a couple weeks this season. At least I've had a couple weeks this season where I've lost in both. I've lost in both leagues. And the Jets obviously lose because they're obviously 0-10. But yeah, overall, good week in fantasy. This is the official score. I won 119 to 107 in my one league, and in my other league, Mike Evans added on a little bit with 10 points. I won 150 to 87, so a very solid game there. And now I move into the playoffs, as I am now the 4 seed because I have more points than the 5 seed. So I'm currently the 4 seed in the playoffs, which is very exciting. I have a big game this week. This is a huge game. This is probably the biggest game of the season. Because if I win this game, I will really, really, really be in a very good position. And then next week, I play the best player in the league. And that's going to be also tough. So I have 2 very, very, very tough games coming up. Hopefully, I can make those count and win both of those. And obviously, like I said, you got, it's just some really, it's really crazy how close these standings really are. And it's at the same time you're like happy, but at the same time you're like nervous too, because you're like, you just want to win. But I just gotta make sure that we can pull out this win here. 6-5. Just crazy how close this really is. It really is crazy how close this is. I mean, it really is. It is crazy. 6-5. There are 6-5 teams. And they're all battling for that 4 seed. So I am hopefully one of those teams that get into the 4 seed and make the playoffs. Because my one league, I'm very confident about the playoffs. I would really have to absolutely flop these next 2 games. And a lot throughout the league would have to happen. Even if I lose these next 2 games in my other league, I'm still going to probably be in the playoffs. I mean, a lot would have to happen in the league in order for me not to make the playoffs. So one league, I'm feeling very confident about the playoffs. The other league, that's this league, is going to really come down to possibly the final week of the season, depending on how all these games play out. So obviously, I'm hoping. I also need some help from other players as well, because there's another 6-5 team. If they lose and I lose, then I'm still very in a good position. But I kind of just want to win this game, because if I win, I'll be very, very, very confident about my chances there. So should be hopefully another good week of fantasy football. We'll get into my one league here. These are the players I'm playing this week. I got Aaron Rodgers, Ezekiel Elliott, Chris Carson, Devontae Adams, Allen Robinson, Hunter Henry, Todd Gurley, Browns defense, and Daniel Carlson. On my bench is Juju Smith-Schuster, DJ Moore, Robert Woods, Matt Ryan, Rob Gronkowski, Duke Johnson, Ronald Jones, and my IR is David Johnson. Some questionables. I am starting Elliott. I liked what I saw out of him last week against Minnesota. He's playing an iffy Redskins team, so I'm going to put him back in. Chris Carson. He right now is still questionable. There's no new news on him, but he is questionable. Hopefully he returns. I put him in for the time being. He's got all the way until Monday. So like I always say, you got time to decide. Unless if you're one of those players that have a running back going Thursday and you're deciding on whether to put in, then you might have to do a toss-up there. But I'm sure there'll be more news on him. Juju Smith-Schuster had a very odd injury. I mean, I hope he's okay, but it was a very odd injury to say the very least. He has Smith-Schuster toe was listed as a non-participant on Monday's estimated practice report. Missy Matthews of the Steelers official site reports. So the ref in the game threw the flag, and he was walking, and the flag hit his toe, and he started limping off the field. So I don't know. You might have to comment down below on this one. I'm not sure. This had to be one of the most oddest injuries I've ever seen. Some other odd injuries are when the players are celebrating. And, I mean, it's not really funny, but, I mean, there's been times where the guys tear their ACLs. They'll be celebrating, they'll jump, and they'll land on something wrong, and they'll tear it, break it, whatever. Those are always odd, too, because you're celebrating, and you injure yourself, and there you go, possibly done for the season. But he was walking back to the sideline, so the flag hit him. I don't know, what is in the flag, though? Like, what, I've felt the flag before. I think it's just, like, maybe, like, sand and stuff. It might have been how he came down. It might have been thrown. Hit him. I mean, I saw the replay. Thrown, hit him, but was it really that big of impact? I mean, I don't know if it's the flag. I mean, it seems to be the flag, because right after it hit him it'd be quite ironic if it was something else. He's already hurt something, then the flag hits it, and now he starts limping. It looked like it was a flag, but that's unless that flag had, like, concrete in it. I mean, I don't know. I'm actually going to Google that. What is inside of a flag? What is inside of a football flag. A small plastic bag of sand is sewn or taped into the flag by a manufacturer. The weight is attached to either create a ball look or the weight is sewn in the center of the flag. Manufacturers still vary the weight of the penalty flag depending on how far an official has to toss it. So I've seen this before. So it looks like there's like sand. That's what I said. So I'm going to Google penalty flag. A penalty flag. I bet you Juju Smith-Schuster will come up here. Yep, he will. He stepped on it. Okay. So it looks like it has, like sand. So I'm confused. Can sand really damage your toe that much? It's confusing. It's a little confusing to me. You're kind of concerned at the same. I mean, maybe he stepped on it. They said now he's stepping on it and he rolled his ankle, which I could see because it's like a ball-like thingy, which I could see rolling an ankle, but it's so tiny. I mean, you've seen flags before. They're thrown all the time, especially if you're watching the Jets. They're one of the most penalized teams in the NFL. They're like this big. You can't really see it very well, but they're like that big. With all those cleats on, it's stepping on a penalty flag. Just tweaked his ankle. Tweaks ankle and foot stepping on a penalty flag. Interesting. I don't know. You're wondering if it wasn't that and he was already injured and that just added on to it. Stepping on it. I'm confused. I don't know. Comment down below. What do you think? It's odd. I mean, I hope he's okay, but it's very odd getting injured by a penalty flag. It's very odd, to say the very least. I mean, maybe they are painful. I've just never stepped on one because I don't use the penalty flag, and I don't play football, so I don't step on one. But even when I used to play tackle football. Even when I used to, I never stepped on a penalty flag. Flags really weren't thrown that much back then, just because there weren't too many flags. But very odd, to say the very least. Hope he's okay. Obviously, like I've said 5 times, but that's odd. That's odd, and that is not normal. I have not seen that one before. I have not seen injury by penalty flag before, but I'm sure you'll get more news on it there. One of my pending moves is I'm picking up Austin Eckler and dropping Duke Johnson. Eckler, they said, will come off of IR this week. That's what head coach Anthony Lynn said. So I'm going to hope that he comes back strong, plays like he did in the beginning of the year, comes back, and he's off of IR. There it is. Daniel Popper of The Athletic expects Eckler hamstring knee to return in week 12. It's week 12, so obviously I hope that he's back. Duke Johnson has done nothing ever since I picked him up, and I'm going to drop him and pick up Austin Eckler, a starter, and hopefully see if he can add anything to my team. And as for my other league, I have 2 pending moves, but this is my other league's team for this week. Deshaun Watson, James Robinson, Antonio Gibson, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, A.J. Brown, Eagles defense, and Daniel Carlson. My bench is Kenyon Drake, Rams defense, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chris Godwin, Kalen Ballage. And my bench is Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill was removed from the quarterback situation. So obviously, he's not going to start for me. He had a big week last week, but he's not going to start because they removed him from the tight end spot. But for Antonio Gibson, he's questionable right now. Gibson ankle did not practice Monday. Clarence E. Hill Jr. of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram reports. So he's questionable. So he's obviously playing that Thursday game. So if he's playing, just keep your eye out for that. I already have my backup plan. It's either Helaire, Drake, or if I do get Mostert. My 2 pending moves are I'm going to drop Eagles defense, pick up Giants. I like the Giants defense against the Bengals offense without Burrow, without all that. I like him there. And a Raheem Mostert, I'm dropping Kalen Ballage. Mostert's coming off of IR as well. They play the Rams. Not sure if I'm going to start him right away because I want to see how he returns. But definitely keep your eye out for that. So, that's the deal there. That's my team at the moment, and 6-5 in the playoffs there. So both leagues at the moment, I'm in the playoffs. Hopefully that stays that way, and I get in the playoffs. Obviously, goal is to win the championship in both leagues. So with all that being said, that will do it for fantasy football. And now I move on to Joe Burrow. We're going to be pretty quick with this one. I took a lot of time with these other topics, but we're gonna talk a little bit about Joe Burrow. Like I said, I don't want to go crazy in depth, but I don't want to go too little. I kind of want to give you a kind of really what happened. But coming up next. Alrighty. So Joe Burrow, if you all know, you probably have heard of him. I'm sure you did. College football, NFL, wherever. I'm sure you heard of him. Got seriously injured on Sunday. Like I said, I talked a little bit about it yesterday. If you want to hear that for some reason, I'm going to talk more in depth about it today. But if you want to go back and watch yesterday's, you can. I obviously heard about it when it happened. He got injured very badly, to say the very least. And there was more news, actually, that came on it yesterday towards the end of the podcast, and I wasn't really able to talk about it fully. I just heard that he had a torn ACL. He's had more damage, which is actually why I think they're going to really struggle the rest of the way, the Bengals, because without Burrow. But this was the deal. So he got hit. His knee really looked like it twisted. Like it looked like it got bent in. Like, I don't know how to say it, but let's just say this is your knee. It got bent in to the point where it was it's almost like, it's hard to say, but let's just say this was your knee, your elbow's your knee here, right? Your knees, it was almost like that, and it was kind of bending in. It looked like it bent pretty far in. So we got word yesterday that a torn ACL, or Sunday a torn ACL. I think we can all agree on that it was a torn ACL. I mean, it's official by now, but once it happened, he got carted off the field. I think a lot of people knew it was something more than just maybe a sprain or a hit, or when he first went down, you never know. When a player first goes down, you never know. Then you'll start to tell on how long it's taking, or if he's holding anything, whether he's holding his foot, whether he's holding his knee. He went down and he was holding his knee right away, so that was not a good sign. Sure enough, turned out he had a torn ACL. Now, we heard yesterday, and I'll get to the stats in a little bit, we heard yesterday about Joe Burrow and the entire situation involving his knee. It was officially came out, according to an MRI, he had a torn ACL, a torn MCL, and to add on to all that craziness, other major structural damage and issues in his knee. So not only was it a torn ACL, which by itself is an awful injury that could really hurt someone's career, it was also followed along with a torn MCL with other structural damage. So he got pretty banged up by one hit. And a guy whose career was going season was going so good, has now taken a complete stopping halt and has now screeching halt, is now done for the year and will be back next season. Now, a lot of people, this whole speculation starts, and I don't like to talk about the negative. I like to be positive, except when I'm talking about the Jets, because it's tough to be positive as a Jets fan when you're talking about them. But I like to be positive. This is a negative thing. A lot of people don't know if he's going to return the same way he left off. And what I mean by that is you don't really know if he's going to be the same player that he was. I mean, he was very good this year. Very good. I mean, took football to the next level at times. A very good season. Threw for 2,688 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. He looked everything like a first-round pick and a first pick in the draft to me. So, it was obvious he was very successful this year. And he was also doing it with absolutely no weapons around him. With no one really around him. Outside of Tyler Boyd and C. Higgins, Ross and Green has struggled. Green caught a touchdown, but even his offensive line was horrendous. His offensive line was horrendous. He got sacked this season 32 times. And that was just in what? They're 2-6-1, so that was just in 9 games. Or no, they can't be. 2-7-1, what are they? And like I said, that was 2-7-1, what are they? Let's see. And like I said, that's it was pretty crazy. But obviously, let me see. What are they? They're 2-7-1, right? They gotta be. Yeah, they're 2-7-1. So just in 9 games, he got sacked 32 times, and he still had a whole nother, not in just in 9 games, in a whole 11 game or what? Wait, hold on a second. 2-7-1, 8 plus 2, 10. So in just 10 games, he still has 6 more games to go, and he was getting sacked a ton. And I'll tell you what, the Bengals got him, and they did a good job, developing him so far. But the Bengals are really to blame on this one. And I don't want to sit here and say, oh, it's the Bengals' fault that he got injured. I don't want to really sit here and tell you that, because for the GM, it's not his fault he got injured. I mean, the GM was probably sitting there watching the game. It's not like he forced them to get injured. So I don't want to really say it's his fault, because I don't know if that's the right word to use. But at the same time, you could use that word and say it's his fault, or the Bengals. I'm going to say it's the Bengals organization's kind of a little bit of their problem. You're getting a franchise quarterback. You're getting a quarterback in Sam Darnold, and they did the same thing, or not Sam Darnold. I skipped a little bit of my words. I was going to bring up Sam Darnold here. They did the same thing the Jets did with Darnold. They knew they were getting a quarterback. They knew they had to protect him. They knew they had to surround him with guys. The Bengals didn't do a very good job of that. The Bengals really didn't. The Bengals actually struggled doing that. And that forced this to happen. They have a very bad offensive line, not an amazing receiving core, a running back who has been injured a ton this year. That's out of your control. But that's why I feel like a little bit of this is on the Bengals organization. Not the exact injury, but all these sacks, a little bit into the injury, because you're getting a guy in Joe Burrow. You got to keep him healthy. You got to surround him with an offensive line. That is what the Miami Dolphins and Brian Flores are doing in Miami. They knew that they are getting a quarterback in Tua who's already had a brutal injury. They already knew that. And they're taking their time with that offensive line. They're building up that offensive line. Because they know. You don't build up that offensive line, it's not going to be smooth sailing. And it's been that way a little bit for Burrow. He's had a very successful year, and that's what I think makes him even better. He's had an awful offensive line and not the best receiving core. You look at Herbert, he's working with a very good receiving core. He's working with a good O-line. He's working with a good receiving core. Outside of Boyd and Higgins, who are two average receivers, he doesn't have that one guy that's above and beyond. Herbert's got that. Not taking anything away from Herbert, but Herbert's got that. So Burrow is doing very good. But obviously, I hope Burrow is okay. And if they surround him with a better offensive line, they surround him with, a couple better guys, he could even burst onto the scene even more. Without a doubt, one of the Rookie of the Year candidates, and that's probably out the window at this point. Justin Herbert's probably the front runner. He was second in many rookie power rankings. Herbert was in front of him, but it was just he's lived up to expectations, and it stinks to see him go down like that. The stats for this season: he had 10 games played, 264 completions, 404 completions, 404 attempts, 65.3 completion percentage, 2,688 yards. His average per play was 6.7, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. His longest play of the season was 67. Sacks 32. He's fumbled 5 times, and his rating was 89.8. So, it was obviously it was a very good season for him. It was a good season for him. It was a good season so far for him. It's obviously not ending the way I think many Bengals fans, many football fans in general wanted it to. He's a fun player to watch. He's a fun player to follow. And it really does stink seeing him down. It stinks to see anyone go down. I'll say this all the time. I may hate on players. I might say I hate this guy and hate this guy and don't like this guy. You never like to see an injury happen to anyone. This happens to be Joe Burrow, who I actually do like. If Tom Burrow, and I don't want to wish bad on anyone, but if somebody I hate gets injured, that stinks. Because you never like to see that. You never like to see anyone get injured at any time. You hope that everyone can not get injured and just play the game and be fine. But that's not the case. Football, man, it's a crazy, crazy sport, but a lot of fun to watch, I'll tell you that for sure. So Joe Burrow done for the season. We'll see him back next season, and like I said, hopefully he comes back next season better than ever and playing really, really, really good. So we now move on to some college basketball. I know, I can't believe I'm saying that. We've been waiting. We have been waiting. Since. When was the shutdown? Beginning of March. So, beginning of March was when the world went into pretty much shutdown, when the March Madness got shut down. It was crazy. And really stunk. That's when this whole sports drought started. We are now back. Started with baseball, started with basketball, started with hockey, NFL, now college baseball, football is back, now college basketball. So finally, college basketball will take the court tomorrow, not today. I know, I'm so excited. I wish it could come on right now and I would watch it. But we got to wait one more day. Or, I mean, not really. It's less than a day now. It's because it's less than a day, but we got to wait, let's just say, one more day until until Kentucky takes the court, until pretty much the rest of college basketball takes the court. There's been a couple cancellations with COVID cases, but hopefully they can keep those calm and they can just move on with the season and have a successful season. So these are the games for tomorrow. These are the games tomorrow. Okay. The matchup. So Kentucky is the over-under. It's 141.5. That's actually pretty high. That's not outrageous, though. Kentucky's 23-point favorites tomorrow. I like that. I think Kentucky will win, obviously. But these are the picks for tomorrow's game. These are the games. I'm not going to give you the picks, but these are the games tomorrow. It's Ohio State, Illinois State, Illinois, North Carolina, A&N, or A&T, Virginia and Maine, Houston and Lamar, Michigan, Bowling Green, Iowa, NCCU. I don't know who. North Carolina Central Basketball. Okay, so that's who they are. Okay, so it's North Carolina Central Basketball. So that's who they are. Okay, I got it now. So it's Iowa, North Carolina Central Basketball, North Carolina, Charleston, Michigan State, Eastern Michigan, Texas Tech, Northwestern State, Arizona State, Rhode Island, Rutgers, Sacred Heart, West Virginia, South Dakota State, Villanova, Boston College, Duke, Gardner Webb. That game was postponed. Texas versus Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Oregon, Eastern Washington, Wisconsin, Eastern Illinois, and then UCLA and South Dakota State. UCLA, that's actually a very good game. You probably have seen a common theme, but you're going to probably see a common theme. Tomorrow's games are they're not the greatest games ever. Kentucky, Morehead State. Never heard of Morehead State. Iowa, number 5 team in the nation. North Carolina Central Basketball. Right, so you're going to see a lot of blowouts. You're going to see a lot of teams you never heard of. I've never heard of North Carolina Central University. You're going to see a lot of that. So expect blowouts. You're not going to see the best games. I think the best game probably on tomorrow, that UCLA South Dakota State or San Diego State game is really good. UCLA ranked top 25 in the nation, big name basketball school, and then you got South Dakota State, who I don't think is the greatest team last season. I thought they were a little overrated, but last season they were undefeated, lost only one game until the whole shutdown, and they were a top 10 team in the nation. So you're going to see a lot of, interesting. You're going to see a lot of blowouts. You might see a couple upsets tomorrow, but you're going to see a lot of blowouts. And I do think Kentucky will probably win pretty easily. I think they'll win pretty easily. But we got to look how we really got to see how they do. They have a lot of freshmen, a lot of young players. They got to really mesh together if they want to win some games. So with all that being said, that will do it for today's podcast. Tomorrow we'll be talking college basketball, and then depending on So obviously college basketball is back on tomorrow, so should be fun to watch. And that's really all I got. So with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed it. Tomorrow we'll be talking college basketball, and I'm more than likely probably doing the football game picks because I'll probably take off on Thanksgiving, but we're still deciding there. With all that being said, I'll see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.